Hello, Ben Johnson, Louisville Parks and Recreation. Welcome to this month's episode of Beyond the Bench. We're going to have a good time. I think we always do. We're going to hear a little bit about urban forestry. We're going to hear a little bit about engineering and design and planning. So as we try to do every month, educate you on some of the things that we do and take you beyond the bench. Hello, and welcome to Beyond the Bench, Louisville Parks and Recreation's monthly show where we take you beyond the bench into all things parks and recreation. There are so many different things that we do that many people do not know about, a lot of which I didn't know until I started here. So we want to make the show lively and entertaining and cover a lot of different subjects. So we're taking you beyond the bench. This month, did you know? Louisville Parks and Recreation manages 5 cemeteries where we have indigent burials. Currently, we only have space at 1, but nonetheless, we have a team that coordinates with the coroner's office and makes sure that those persons who don't have anyone else to see to their final wishes are still taken care of properly and respectfully. I know some of the guys that work on that team. It is emotional work, but they take it very seriously and they take a lot of pride in doing what they do. So that is this month's Beyond the Bench. Now to happier times, I have Miss Kate Karl, who is a
Forestry manager with Urban Forestry.
So she is a forestry manager with Urban Forestry. So to the layperson, what does that mean?
So I'm an arborist, which means that I care for trees. Okay. And arborists can do everything from planning where those trees might go in a landscape to diagnosing what diseases they might have and the regular care, pruning and watering and planting of trees.
Okay, cool. So we gave you some questions and I do a wonderful job of throwing in other things. You just made me think of something. So how important is it that people put the right trees in the right place? Like, don't just run to a place and say, oh, that's a pretty tree, I'm gonna put it. There's a lot, because you just mentioned diseases and pruning and so forth. So
there's a lot of things to consider. For one, the tree's health, so what the soil looks like, how much water it's gonna be getting, how much sunlight, and then all the other things that us humans need to live around the tree. So are there gonna be a lot of cars in this area? Is it going to get damaged? Are there going to be overhead power lines that it's going to grow into, or a building that it might interfere with? All of these things we need to consider.
So you're saying when I go on vacation, I shouldn't just grab a planting from Phoenix and say, oh, I'm going to put this in my backyard.
Exactly. Yes. all trees have different zones that they want to grow in.
Gotcha. So you mentioned power lines and so forth. So why is it important not just to plant the proper tree, but to care for it properly?
Yeah, so whenever a tree grows under a power line, and we need to eliminate that risk of it growing into the power line, we tend to cut that tree at a very blunt area, so it's more prone to disease or infection. It'll have poor structure and kind of create an issue down the line. If we select the right tree for that location, like a small growing tree, we'll never run into that problem.
Gotcha. Okay. We often hear the term urban tree canopy. What is that?
So the urban tree canopy is similar to what it sounds like. It's all of the trees in the city. Mm-hmm. And that can be everything from our parks to something lining the Ohio River, and then also the trees in your backyard.
And I thought I heard a while ago that we are, I guess, below what we should have. Is that correct in terms of the canopy?
Absolutely, yes.
What does that, explain that a little bit.
So all cities have what's referred to as a heat island.
Okay.
And that means that in an area that normally would be forested, a lot of those trees have been removed due to development. Mm-hmm. So we've got concrete, we've got buildings and metal, and all of that absorbs and holds onto that heat. Mm-hmm. And so we need a canopy to help reflect a lot of that light and a lot of that heat. Mm-hmm. Trees directly cool cities, and it's extremely important to our air quality, our water quality, and just our urban environment to have that canopy.
So is that one of the reasons, like if you go to a mall or maybe even a stadium, a vast expanse of parking, you might see islands and they'll have some plantings or trees. Is that in response to that?
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. You're going to want to try to offset as much of that concrete as possible.
Gotcha. All right, cool. So here's a fun one. The tree ordinance.
Yes.
Talk about that a little bit.
So a lot of people are not extremely familiar with the tree ordinance. Basically, what it says is that the adjacent property owner is responsible for their public tree. So a tree that might be growing in that little strip of land between the street and the sidewalk is financially the responsibility of that property owner.
Okay.
Us at Urban Forestry, we know that this is a very big burden to place on a homeowner.
Okay.
And we want to see that these trees are protected and that we continue to grow this urban canopy. So if people are unable to afford their public tree, we do have funds available to assist them with that.
Good. That's helpful. And I'm willing to bet that a lot of people didn't know that, and maybe we'll put up a slide or some other information. So if someone is interested in finding out more about their program, what should they do?
So they should submit a 311 call.
Okay.
If they have a concern about a tree, we'll inspect it, and if it does need that maintenance, we'll go ahead and reach out to them about the tree assistance fund.
Oh,
with
okay,
their
good.
permit.
That's simple enough. So if you have concerns about a tree that you are supposed to be caring for in accordance with the tree ordinance, call 311 and it will eventually work its way to Parks and Recreation and to Urban Forestry, and we'll do what we can to assist the public. But I guess that goes back to what you were talking about how important it is to maintain the tree canopy and have the heat offsets and so forth.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. But that's good. I mean, that's good information. So I guess we would suggest 311 for other issues or concerns or questions about trees as well.
Absolutely. There's a ton of different people that work with the trees around our city. So if you call in a tree, Metro 311 will be able to determine if that's a private property tree, if it's along a state road, or if it's one of the urban forestry trees on a Metro maintained road.
So all the trees aren't ours.
Exactly. All the trees.
Gotcha. So what about, you mentioned that, what are some of the other organizations around the city that work with trees or that maybe you all collaborate with?
Oh yeah, so Codes and Regulations works with trees. Public Works does, KYTC, the state.
Okay.
We've also got a lot of nonprofit organizations, Louisville Grows, Trees Louisville, and Brightside. All of them work with trees.
So that's a lot of folk working on trees.
It is,
Yeah, gotcha. But I guess we have a lot of trees, so, and you just mentioned right-of-ways and whose actual property it is makes a difference.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay, great. So, urban forestry, learn more about the healthy tree canopy. I'm interested in maybe a volunteer project or even learning about my own trees that I'm supposed to care for. How can people do that?
Yeah, we have plenty of volunteer projects throughout the year. So we have projects regarding planting, pruning, understanding the Louisville tree canopy more. We also have mulching events throughout the summer. So if you're ever interested in volunteering with us, all you need to do is go to our website or check our social media.
Okay. What about kids? So, I love kids, running community centers, but let's just say I'm maybe a middle or high school teacher and want a project for some of our young kids or, some of my class.
Yeah.
Do we do that as well, that opportunity?
Absolutely. I will say a lot of the trees that we plant are pretty large. Those root balls can be anywhere from 100 to 250 pounds.
Oh, I'm not doing that.
So we recommend some of the lighter events like mulching for the younger kids.
Okay. So you mentioned Tree Fest, and I know what it is, but I don't want to get it wrong. So give the people more information, how they can volunteer, because it sounds like a pretty fun event.
Yeah, definitely. So it's going to be held at Petersburg Park this year on April 19th. That's a Saturday.
Okay.
And we're going to have a bunch of different events from volunteer opportunities, mulching, tree planting. We're going to have a rock wall, live music, food trucks. It's going to be a whole festival that's dedicated to celebrating Arbor Day.
What time does it start?
It starts at 11.
11 until?
I would say about 3 o'clock.
Okay, so actually that's pretty good time. You ain't got to get up first thing in the morning, and then you still have the rest of the afternoon if you want to do something else. And Petersburg Park is beautiful.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Petersburg Park is beautiful, near the Newburgh Community Center. I'm Equal Opportunity, the Boys and Girls Club, the library. So there's actually quite a bit to do right on that stretch. So that's great. So let me ask you this. All these trees that you all plant, where do they come from?
So they come from local nurseries. We try to get native trees to the best of our ability.
Similar to the conversation we had earlier about making sure they fit in the environment. Okay.
And then we also have a nursery in-house out of Seneca Park.
Oh, okay.
So we grow a lot of the trees that eventually go to their forever homes in our park system and our parkways.
How long does that take? What size are you starting with, and what size do you move them?
Yeah, so we're starting with, I would say like 1/4 inch diameter trees, and we harvest them at 2 inch trees.
And about how long does that take?
Depending on the species, it can be anything from 3 years to 7.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So does somebody in particular care for those?
Yes.
Is that a particular specialty?
We have a whole horticultural team, and that's
Right.
led by our landscape supervisor, Chris.
Okay. Any idea how many trees are out there?
So we can fit up to 3,000. Right now, I think we've got about 2,000 on
Okay.
that lot.
Cool.
And we're harvesting in and around 250 a year.
Oh, okay. So that's kind of cool. So sort of a rotational basis.
Exactly.
So when you harvest, do we let that ground like rest for a season before, or do you immediately replant?
It's ready for a new tree
Oh, wow.
at that
Okay.
point. We regularly mulch it, so there's constantly new nutrients
okay.
going into that soil.
Right. Okay. Cool. Wondering about that. So you mentioned some of the partners. What other kind of initiatives are there out there in terms of the tree canopy and the replacement and things of that nature?
Yeah, so we've got our Leafy program, which is an IRA funded grant.
Okay.
And that is all focused on getting residents that live in underserved areas any additional help with their public trees, especially financially. There's a workforce development program. There's a lot of really cool initiatives going on.
Okay. Good.
I will also say we do have a tree inventory that's
Okay.
coming up. That'll be this summer. So Davy Tree is going to be out in their vehicles collecting data, also boots on the ground, inspecting these trees and giving us a direct map of what trees need attention, need to be
Okay.
managed.
So it's the tree inventory is specifically, I guess, to get ahead of possibly diseased or dying trees of that nature.
Exactly. It helps us identify trees before people need to call them in
Gotcha.
that might need help.
Okay. Not on the sheet. How, when a storm is coming in and we're hearing about winds or a lot of rain and so forth, are you all involved in that?
Oh, absolutely. All the supervisors are on 24-hour call, and we directly will clear any of the parkways or important park roads that cannot wait until the following workday.
And again, that's another did you know. So the urban forestry team, when we have these storms, and I remember the ice storm that didn't quite come through, but it was really cold.
Yes.
That you all were glad that we didn't have the ice, because that weighs down tree limbs and power lines and things of that nature, and it really makes your job fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Rain doesn't scare me so much, but wind and ice scare me a little bit.
Right. Well, I'm glad that for the entire community, and obviously for you and your team, that we did not have that particular issue. Anything else you want to share about urban forestry or your work?
I will say we do have a master plan that should be coming out pretty soon.
Okay.
And that's going to basically give us a roadmap for what our urban canopy will look like in the next 50 to 100 years and what we should be focusing on.
Okay.
So we're really excited about that. We haven't had a master plan yet. So this is going to be a really big development and guiding where our department goes.
Okay. So last question. We have a lot of parks, obviously. We have a lot of trees. We have a lot of people that enjoy them. So you're taking your family out and you got a couple of kids that like to climb trees. What are some basic do's? I mean, climbing trees is just kind of natural. It's a kid thing. But what are some basic do's and don'ts that you would like to share with the public before we get out of here?
I would say don't do anything that's going to hurt the bark.
Okay.
The bark is basically like your skin. It's a protective layer. If you cut into it, it's going to have exposure to disease.
Okay.
I would say do pick a good spot where you can get a pretty good view of the park, and there's some lower limbs for you to easily grab onto. And other than that, I would just say try to leave that tree better than you found it.
So no Tracy Loves Being scratched into a heart, none of that?
Yes.
Okay, well, I've never done that, but just want everybody else know not to do it either. So, okay, well, great. Well, that ends the first segment. Ms. Kate, Karl, I believe that was quite educational. I learned a few things. Hope you did as well. So we will be right back with the next segment of Beyond the Bench. Welcome back. The second segment of Beyond the Bench. So we learned quite a bit about trees and the tree canopy and some do's and don'ts in the first segment. This segment, we're going to stay with sort of the educational component of Parks and Recreation. And I have Mr. Spencer Holt. Spencer, how are you?
Very well, how are you?
Doing fine, doing fine. Appreciate you coming in and filling in. We had a sort of a lineup change. I'm not going to call anybody out. We'll deal with him back at the ranch. But nonetheless, yeah. So what's your official title?
I'm a landscape architect, project manager for the Parks Department.
We're going to touch on that. Okay. So are you in engineering and design?
I am in the engineering and design department.
Okay.
We have engineers and planners, and as I say, I'm a landscape architect by training.
Okay. So landscape architect by training, but engineer and design by necessity?
Somewhat. I mean, they overlap. Our department has different skill sets. So I cover certain areas of needs in our department, and we have. When I have a trouble that something requires math, I go to the engineers. So.
Got you. Everybody has their strengths and weaknesses.
Right.
So, who are you? Why are you here? And there's a little future wannabe Spencer. How did they get to where you are?
Well, I studied landscape architecture at the University of Kentucky.
Okay.
I was always interested in the outdoors.
Oh, look at the blue backdrop.
Right, very nice. I like that. Always interested in the outdoors and the environment, and that's led me down that path. I graduated and went straight to work for a golf course design firm for about 10 years.
Are you a local?
I am. I was born in Lebanon, Marion County.
Okay.
So yeah, Kentucky native. But after about 10 years in Ohio designing golf courses, I moved back to Kentucky and started my own design business. But then the crash of the economy in 2008 put a kind of a dent in the golf business.
Right.
So I started spreading my wings and actually incorporating more of my landscape architectural skills.
Okay.
And found my way to parks in 2018.
Okay. So you've been there for a little bit.
Yeah, about going on 7 years.
Okay. Where were you in Ohio?
Toledo.
Oh, Toledo.
Yeah.
If you had said Cleveland or Cincinnati, I had some jokes.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna leave Toledo.
Buttheads, if you know the Toledo.
Yeah, the Toledo. Yeah. But anyway, I was talking about the Bengals not being any good and the Browns just circling the drain. But that's not why we're here. So, the department or your division, in a nutshell, I'm not gonna say what's your benefit to the department. What do the people see that you all do? How do you contribute to what the public gets to take advantage of?
Well, I think for us, our department, you think of it as more when there's something that needs to be repaired in the park, typically it will come through us. If there's a playground that needs to be replaced or repaired, any kind of design related or planning type work, it comes through our department first. So anything new, if we're building new facilities, new tennis court, new basketball court, typically it's going to go through our office, and we're going to work with the park and do the appropriate design and consider the needs of the park.
Okay. So the Walnut Street project, are you involved with that one?
We are, but more on that one. We've hired outside consultants to handle that. It's such a big project, and it was a little bit more through the city was more involved than just parks on that one. So we're working with an outside consultant, and we are involved. We are also weighing in on decisions, and things are going through us. But really, a lot of the heavy lifting on the design is being done by an outside firm. Okay.
Well, I was around a meeting or two just enough to be dangerous. But a lot of things that people don't realize, I didn't realize, even the orientation of the fields and things of that nature, because of how the sun comes in and the different seasons when the sports are being played. I think those are the kind of things that a lot of people don't realize.
Right, yeah, there's a lot of that, yeah, obviously. Tennis, pickleball, all those things. If you go in, mostly every facility in every park will be oriented north and south, or should be. If you want to avoid bad sun angles.
Right.
But there are a lot of little design elements like that with everything we do.
And that's why we're doing the show, because there are so many nuances to things that people think just happen or were luck or were bad luck, because sometimes you might not like how something is oriented or why something is put a certain place and not understand that there's a very good, defensible, educated, professional reason why.
That's exactly right. I mean, if you walk into a park or drive in, there's going to be a lot of things you wouldn't you won't maybe know why you enjoy that view so well, or what is it that makes me happy in this park. A lot of that is thought out. It's not just by accident. I mean, obviously it's a beautiful natural piece of land. That's always a great thing, but there is something to be said for planning and design and how you experience the park.
That's funny. That's a good point that I hadn't thought about. So it's almost like if somebody doesn't notice a certain thing, that means we did our job well.
Right, somewhat, I think
Yeah.
so. We hope that you experience happiness and enjoy the environment. But again, I think there's, as we we're lucky to have several Olmsted designed parks in Louisville, and most of his design is very subtle. Maybe most people would not know why we appreciate him, but his hand is all over Cherokee Park.
Gotcha.
And how you experience it.
So we'll continue along that theme a little bit. The best part of your job, what do you enjoy the most?
Well, I think the great thing is I get to be in the parks, right? So, and it's a perfect job because, and I've always said this for landscape architecture too, is that it's kind of a 50-50. You get 50% of your time really in the office doing design work and drawing and being creative, but then the other half you get to be out in the field when it's under construction and be amongst the trees and kick up the dirt.
So is that the first, okay. So what's the frustrating part of that? I know you got permitting and
Right. Sure. Yeah, the paperwork is usually the unfun, not the most fun part. But yes, right. We have to draw it on paper, then send it out for a bid, have contractors bid it, and we usually have to value engineer it because they very often come in higher than what you think your budget is. Then once you agree on a contractor, can value engineer your price down. Then you start thinking about permitting. We've got to send the plans into the city, and a lot of times for us it's through MSD and making sure we've done our proper controls for erosion and making sure the site is stabilized during construction and protected, that we don't have mud or silt spilling into the streams. So
somebody gave you a blank check and said, design a park from start to finish. How long would that take?
Just the design or the construction?
No. From start to little kids running across and somebody sitting at a bench.
If you're starting from scratch, for like New Walnut would be an example. I think it's probably about a 2 to 3 year process.
Because you're always trying to do it right.
Right, exactly. And then the other part of that is you're involving a lot of people, which is a good thing. We start out usually, such as New Walnut, you're starting out with community engagement. You're finding out what the neighborhood needs or wants. So, that takes time to sit down with different various interest groups and talk with them and find out what would fit. And so that's part of the process, and it's a very important part.
Accessibility, how important is that these days?
Very, very important. Every new project we build, it's included for sure. And we're also trying to retrofit any older facilities that need to be addressed.
Right. And a lot of times what people don't realize is, we'll just say a curb cut.
Right.
It's also benefiting new parents who have babies in strollers. It's benefiting some of our senior citizens who might be on walkers or, limited mobility. So we might think of it as for someone in a wheelchair particularly, but it benefits so many other segments of society when we do those things right and take it into consideration.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. Yeah, it helps all of us.
Right.
It makes for a better product for everybody, really, ultimately.
Good. So, real quick, deferred maintenance. I know that's one of your favorite subjects. How big a challenge is that for us?
It's a huge, huge challenge. And it's something that every park has. We have amenities and facilities that have been ignored year after year. Luckily, the last couple of years, we've seen more funding, and we've been able to address a lot of deferred maintenance issues. And we're seeing a lot of sport courts being rebuilt this last 2 years. A lot of pavement and asphalt being repaired, concrete patios and bathrooms being addressed. So we're making headway, but there's always a long list.
So would it be ignored, or is it funding and staffing? Because I also know, I think we're down a project manager or two.
We are.
That makes it a challenge.
It does, right. You can throw a lot of money at deferred maintenance, but you still need the people to make it happen and to really run the projects and make sure things are done right.
Gotcha.
And so we are a little short-staffed right now, so that does limit our ability to move fast.
Okay.
But we're working, on a list, and we'll work our way down.
Last
list.
thing for you, deferred maintenance, planning and design. What can people do to help make your job, our job, easier in terms of how they utilize the facilities and or report a challenge or issue? What do you think?
Basic things. I think for us, the biggest problems we run into sometimes is vandalism. Mainly in our buildings, so like restrooms and those kind of things. So if you see someone doing something inappropriate, certainly call the authorities or call someone with the parks, and we can try to address it. But
So call 311
311
or 911.
or if severe enough, 911. Right.
Gotcha.
But and certainly pick up your trash and those kind of things. Be a good steward, a good citizen when you're in the park, and don't leave it for someone else to pick up.
Absolutely. Great. Well, Mr. Spencer Holt, certainly appreciate your time, appreciate your expertise. So again, this has been Johnson, Louisville Parks and Recreation, Beyond the Bench. Hope you've learned a lot today, and hope you will continue to help us be better stewards of what your tax dollars pay for, and encourage your fellow citizens to do the same. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next month.